Good day everyone, welcome again to another episode of Tax Training, and today I will discuss to you the scope and limitation of taxation, the constitutional limitations. So the following are the constitutional limitations of taxation. Provisions directly affecting taxations are: number 1, prohibitions against imprisonment for non-payment of poll tax. Number 2, uniformity and equality of taxation. Number 3, grant by Congress of authority to the President to impose tariff rates. Number 4, prohibition against taxation of religious charitable entities and educational entities. 5, prohibition against taxation of non-stock, non-profit educational institutions. Number 6, majority vote of Congress for grant of tax exemptions. Number 7, prohibition on use of tax levied for special purpose. Number 8, President's veto power on appropriation revenue on tariff bills. Number 9, non-impairment of jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. Number 10, grant of power to the local government units to create its own sources of revenue. Number 11, flexible tariff clause. Number 12, exemption from real property taxes. And number 13, no appropriation or use of public money for religious purposes. Provisions indirectly affecting taxations are: number 1, prohibition against imprisonment for non-payment of tax. Number 2, equal protection. Number 3, religious freedom. And number 4, non-impairment of obligations and contract. So provisions directly affecting taxation: prohibition against imprisonment for non-payment of poll tax. No person shall be imprisoned for debt or non-payment of a poll tax. Article 3, Section 20, 1987 Constitution. Number 2, uniformity and equality of taxation. The rule of taxation shall be uniform and equitable. Congress shall evolve a progressive system of taxation. So, nandyan talaga po sa Constitution natin. Article 6, Section 28, Paragraph L, 1987 Constitution. Uniformity. All taxable articles or properties of the same class shall be taxed at the same rate. Yun ang ibig sabihin ng uniformity. City of Baguio versus De Leon, GR number L 24756, 1968. Letter A, uniformity of operation throughout tax unit. The rule requires the uniform application and operation without discrimination of the tax in every place where the subject of it is found. This means, for example, that a tax for national purpose must be uniform and equal throughout the country, and a tax for a province, city, municipality, or barangay must be uniform and equal throughout the province, city, municipality, or barangay. So, yun po yung ibig sabihin ng uniformity of operation. So, equality in burden is uniformity implies equality in burden, not equality in amount or equality in its strict and literal meaning. The reason is simple enough. If legislation imposes a single tax upon all persons, properties, or transactions, an inequality would obviously result, considering that not all persons, properties, and transactions are identical or similarly situated. Neither does uniformity demand that taxes shall be proportional to the relative value or amount of the subject thereof. Taxes may be progressive. So, progressive po yung tax natin. Equity, uniformity in taxation is effected through the apportionment of the tax burden among the taxpayers, which under the Constitution must be equitable. Equitable means fair, just, reasonable, and proportionate to the taxpayer's ability to pay. No? So, yung equitable. Taxation may be uniform but inequitable where the amount of the tax imposed is excessive or reasonable. The constitutional requirement of equity in taxation also implies an approach which employs a reasonable classification of the entities or individuals who are to be affected by a tax, where the tax differentiation is not based on material or substantial differences. The guarantee of equal protection of the laws and the uniformity rule will likewise be infringed. No? So, yung equity in taxation. Taxation does not require identity or equality under all circumstances or negate the authority to classify the object of taxation. So, what is the test of valid classification? Classification to be valid must be reasonable, and this requirement is not deemed satisfied unless, number 1, it is based upon substantial distinctions, which makes real differences, no? Substantial distinctions. Number 2, these are germane to the purpose of the legislation or ordinance. Number 3, the classification applies not only to present conditions, substantially identical to those of the present, no? So, hindi ibig sabihin na pag gumawa ka ng batas, applicable lang siya ngayon. Kailangan applicable din siya in the future. The classification applies equally to all those who belong to the same class, no? So, hindi pwede na yung selective lang, no? Prohibition on use of tax levied for public purpose. No? So, yun. Kailangan applies yung batas mo yan equally to all those who belong to the same class. Okay. The progressive system of taxation would place stress on direct rather than indirect taxes, on non-essentially rather than essentially to the taxpayer of the object of taxation, or on the taxpayer's ability to pay. Example is that individual income tax system that imposes rates progressing upwards as the tax base, no? So, taxpayers' taxable income increases. A progressive tax, however, must not be confused with a progressive system of taxation. Progressive kasi, big sabihin pataas, no? So, while equal protection refers more to like treatment of persons in like circumstances, uniformity and equity refer to the proper relative treatment for tax purposes of persons in unlike circumstances. No? So, yun yung tinatawag natin na equal protection. Grant by Congress of authority to the President to impose tariff rates. Delegation of tariff powers to the President under the Flexible Tariff Clause, Section 28, Paragraph 2, Article 6, 1987 Constitution, which authorizes the President to modify import duties, Section 1608, Customs Modernization and Tariff Act, previously Section 401 of the Customs Law natin, no? So, the grant by the Congress or of authority to the President to impose tariff rates, nandyan po yan sa Constitution. So, kasama po siya dito sa scope and limitation of taxation, no? And these are provided in the Constitution, kaya ang tawag natin dito, constitutional limitations, no? So, with that, I would like to say thank you and let's call it a day.